All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Unhinged female supremacy. All women are on the BPD spectrum pushing for communism, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Men who walk away are not cowards. They're the last sane men in a world run by emotional terrorists. How women weaponize tears. How woke ideology gaslights the West. And why your instinct to flee is the only rational response to the collapse of civilization. You think she said no because she meant it. You think he walked away because he didn't care. You're still blue-pilled, brother, and your soul is leaking out your ears while you nod along to therapists telling you to communicate better and professors screeching about toxic masculinity. Like it's a disease caught from lifting weights and reading Homer. Let me paint you a fresco with blood and truth. The modern woman doesn't say no to set a boundary. She says no like Cleopatra raised her goblet, testing whether you'll drink the asp or flinch. And when you flinch, when you respect her words like a gentleman, the snake bites you. I once knew a man, married 8 years, made 6 figures, built his company from a laptop in a garage. One night, after she cried for the 3rd time that week over a burnt steak, he walked out to sit in his car and breathe. Not rage, not escape. Breathe. She called the police. Filed for divorce. Said he abandoned her emotionally. The court gave her the house, the kids, and 60% of his income. He didn't hit her, didn't cheat, just left the room. And yet the system crowned her victim and him villain. Because in the genocentric theocracy we live in, a man's silence is a confession, and his self-control is proof of guilt. Wake up. The divorce courts aren't courts. They're tribunals run by priestesses of female supremacy, where men are tried in absentia for crimes of omission, not listening enough, not feeling enough, not bleeding enough. Sweden, once the land of Vikings, now imports men who rape at 14 times the rate of native Swedes, and the Prime Minister, a woman, calls it a minor adjustment. Meanwhile, male suicide rates soar, not because men are fragile, but because they are honorable, and honor means nothing when the rules are written in invisible ink by those who profit from your collapse. You're not broken, you're betrayed. And this book isn't therapy, it's surgery. No anesthetics, no apologies, just scalpels to the rot. The fracture of the male psyche, how feminine chaos breeds male flight. 73% of divorces are initiated by women, says the National Divorce Registry, 73%. That number isn't a statistic, it's a battlefield casualty report. I once spoke with a Navy SEAL, call him Jax, who was engaged to a woman who, after he declined to cancel a week-long training op for her birthday, staged a full-blown mental collapse. Crying spells at 3 a.m., hospital visits, the works. The twist, she texted her best friend during one breakdown, he's finally gonna cave. This guilt trip is working. This isn't mental illness. This is emotional jujitsu, a premeditated takedown disguised as vulnerability. And men trained from boyhood to see tears as an emergency siren, rush in like firefighters only to discover the house was never on fire. The flame was her script. I know an aerospace engineer, top of his field, 6-figure income, built his own drone from scratch, whose wife weaponized silence like a Cold War operative. For weeks she'd say nothing, not a word. Just cold stares, untouched dinner plates, and the occasional sigh that could power a wind turbine. He'd ask, "What's wrong?" And she'd say, "Nothing," in the same tone a priest uses when absolving a murderer. When he finally left, she sobbed to her therapist. He never listened. This from a woman who'd monopolized every conversation with monologues about how he didn't listen. This is the feminine dialectic. Lose the argument, lose the logic, lose the facts, then declare victory by emotional fiat. She didn't want resolution, she wanted penance. And when he refused to grovel, she reframed his sanity as abandonment. That's not communication, that's coercion in a cardigan. Jordan Peterson once said men collapse under nagging, not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned to believe peace is moral superiority. Let me sharpen that. Men are programmed to seek harmony like a dog trained to sit for a treat. Women, meanwhile, are rewarded for escalation. Show me a woman who cries in a meeting and gets promoted versus a man who raises his voice and gets HR'd, then tell me our culture isn't genocentric. Evolutionary psychology confirms what every red-pilled man already knows. Women are more likely to use indirect aggression, social shunning, emotional withdrawal, guilt-tripping, while men favor direct confrontation. And yet, who gets labeled toxic? The man who says, "Let's talk," not the woman who says, "I'm fine," while poisoning the well for months. Society doesn't punish manipulation, it worships it, so long as it wears mascara. The man who walks away isn't broken, he's awake, he's seen the game. He knows the rules are rigged. He's realized that emotional disconnection, the favorite divorce euphemism, really means he stopped rewarding my histrionics. This is not cowardice. This is strategic retreat from a war where the enemy changes the map every 5 minutes. In ancient Sparta, warriors didn't fight on terrain chosen by the foe, they picked the battlefield. The modern man who flees a relationship isn't fleeing her. He's fleeing the infinite regression of guilt she demands. He's not surrendering. He's disarming the booby trap. Women aren't socialized to resolve conflict. They're socialized to escalate it, covertly, patiently, like a slow drip of acid on steel. Schopenhauer called it the art of spiritual attrition, and he wasn't wrong. A woman doesn't argue, she erodes. She doesn't debate, she haunts. She'll say, "You never spend time with me," while scheduling yoga, brunch, book club, and a weekend getaway, all without him. When he points this out, she'll say, "So you do notice I'm gone," as if his observation is proof of neglect. This is logical judo. Use his reason against him, and the moment he disengages, she brands it abandonment, thus justifying another round of emotional bombardment. It's a closed loop of guilt, and the exit door is labeled selfish. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Silence is not surrender, it is sovereignty. Every time a man refuses to chase a woman's emotional ghost, he reclaims a piece of his soul. The remedy isn't therapy, it's philosophy. It's reading Marcus Aurelius and realizing that your peace is not negotiable. It's understanding that you are not responsible for her mood, her validation, her drama. You are responsible for your virtue, your duty, your honor. And if she can't stand beside you as an ally, she has no right to stand beside you at all. The male retreat isn't weakness, it's the last sane act in a world gone mad. And the moment you understand that, you're no longer a victim, you're a vanguard. I once believed the world operated on fairness, that honesty, decency, and respect were the currency of human connection. I taught my students to honor boundaries, advised young men to listen, to be patient, to lead with virtue. And then I watched one of those students, the one who did everything right, get crushed by a system that doesn't reward integrity, but performance. It was in his hollow-eyed confession over lukewarm beer that I realized we've built a civilization that preaches consent while mythologizing coercion, that raises men to be knights only to have them beheaded by the very damsels they tried to save. The truth is not found in policy manuals or diversity trainings. It's in the dorm room, the breakup text. The silent treatment after sex was refused. It's in the gap between what women say and what they select for. And that gap, that's where empires of delusion are built, and where men go silent, bitter, or extinct. The boundary illusion, when no is a trap not a limit. Nice guys finish last. I heard that phrase in a dorm room argument during my first year of university over cheap beer and worse philosophy between two broken men trying to make sense of why the girl who laughed at their jokes then slept with the guy who ignored her. One of them, a quiet engineering student, said he'd texted a girl for weeks, asked her out politely, respected her no when she said she wasn't ready, and 2 weeks later, she posted Instagram stories with some meathead rugby player who'd cornered her at a party and wouldn't take no for an answer. I followed the rules, he said, voice cracking. And the guy who broke everyone got the prize. That moment wasn't an anomaly. It was the unveiling of a system, a rigged mating economy, where saying no is often just the first move in a psychological chess match designed to filter for dominance, not respect. Let's talk about the college professor, Dr. James O'Connor, a man with 2 decades of tenure, expertise in 1870s rhetorical traditions, and zero interest in conflict. One term, a female student approached him post-lecture, anxious about an upcoming assignment. He suggested meeting during his scheduled availability. She replied, "I can't. My calendar's packed." He responded, "Fair enough. Just say when you're available." That was it. A week later, she lodged a Title IX claim alleging emotional pressure for extending support. The school initiated a review. Fellow faculty pulled back. His wife caught him staring into space at dawn, whispering, "I honored her boundaries," and that became the offense. Months afterward, in a mediated session, the student confessed she expected him to insist, to prove he'd go the extra mile, to show he valued her. To her, his restraint read as coldness. His integrity read as rejection. This isn't merely heartbreaking, it's entirely foreseeable. Today's woman isn't raised to value being honored. She's conditioned to crave pursuit. And when a man follows her stated limits, he flunks her silent expectation. I once heard a woman on a podcast say, "If a guy takes my no seriously the first time, I lose respect for him." She laughed, said it was a test. Another admitted on Reddit, "I'll say no 3 times just to see if he's serious. If he gives up, bye, he's weak." This isn't fringe behavior, it's widespread. The dating app culture, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, is built on this silent rule. Women swipe left on nice guys and right on those with edge. Why? Because niceness signals low status. Submission to a no signals lack of will. And in the primal theater of mating, will is currency. These women aren't evil, they're conditioned. Raised on Disney princesses, rescued by persistent princes, rom-coms where the hero stalks the heroine across continents, and social media influencers preaching, "He pursued me even when I said no." They've been sold a lie. That love is supposed to feel like violence. David Buss, evolutionary psychologist at UT Austin, spent decades studying mate selection across 37 cultures. His research shows that women consistently rank persistence as a desirable trait in men, especially after initial rejection. They're more attracted to men who escalate, who don't take no for an answer, who demonstrate resource investment in winning her over. Why? Because in ancestral environments, a man who gave up at the first no likely wouldn't protect her or her children in a crisis. A man who persisted, who hunted, fought, endured, was more likely to ensure survival. But here's the twist. Women punish men who respect boundaries as boring or emotionally unavailable, while rewarding those who violate them as confident or passionate. This creates a perverse incentive structure. The respectful man is discarded. The boundary pusher is celebrated. The system doesn't reward virtue. It rewards perceived strength, even when it's aggression in disguise. I met a man in Toronto, let's call him Dan, who told me his girlfriend had a rough week at work. He offered to cook, asked if she wanted to talk, and when she said she needed space, he gave it. No pressure, no guilt. Just respect. A week later, she dumped him. "You didn't fight for me," she said. "You just accepted it." I felt unloved. She moved on to a guy who'd broken into her apartment once to surprise her and showed up at her job unannounced. This isn't love. This is pathology, but to her it was devotion, and to the culture. It's romance. The media glorifies the stalker hero, the John Cusack with the boombox, the Ryan Gosling who builds a house. No one makes a movie about the guy who texts once a week and respects your boundaries. Because that guy is boring, that guy doesn't sell tickets, that guy doesn't get the girl, that guy dies childless, wondering where he went wrong. The no is not a stop sign, it is a maze, a trial by fire, a social and sexual litmus test disguised as autonomy. Women are biologically wired to select for males who can override resistance, not because they enjoy abuse, but because their evolutionary programming equates persistence with provision and protection. In the Pleistocene, a man who gave up easily didn't feed the tribe. A man who kept going, even when rejected, did. But in the modern world, this instinct has been hijacked by hypergamy and gynocentric entitlement. Women now use boundaries as filters, not limits. They say no, not to stop you, but to see if you'll keep coming. And if you do, you pass. If you don't, you're not into me. This is why nice guys finish last. They play chess, while the game is actually gladiator combat. And let's be brutally honest, the legal system rewards this madness. False accusations soar, while conviction rates for male victims of relationship abuse languish near zero. Family courts routinely strip fathers of their children, even when evidence of maternal alienation or abuse is clear, because the system presumes women are inherently nurturing and men are inherently threatening. Police arrest men for stalking when they send 3 texts, but ignore women who show up at a man's workplace with a cake and a declaration of love. The double standard isn't an oversight, it's design. A civilization that worships the feminine cannot tolerate male sovereignty. So it pathologizes male restraint and sanctifies female coercion. The remedy, calibrated assertiveness, not submission, not predation, but discernment. Men must learn to distinguish a genuine boundary, a no rooted in trauma, values, or disinterest, from a mating test. This isn't manipulation, it's wisdom. It's the difference between a knight and a slave. A knight respects honor, but he does not kneel to games. He sees the maze for what it is and navigates it with courage, not compliance. He knows that in the court of female desire, respect without strength is contempt. And he refuses to be a sacrificial lamb on the altar of gynocentrism. You were taught to be polite, to listen, to respect. But no one told you that in the jungle of modern dating, respect is often the first sign of weakness. The woman who says no doesn't always want to be left alone, she wants to be won. And if you walk away, you're not respectful, you're disposable. The game is rigged, the rules are lies. And the only way out is to see the matrix, reject the script, and become the man who chooses, not pleads, not obeys, but chooses when and how to engage. Anything less is spiritual suicide. It wasn't just one firing, it was a pattern, a ritual. I started counting how many engineers, scientists, teachers, and fathers had been purged for speaking the biological truth, only to be replaced by hormonal harpies and ideology, adult interns whose entire resume was a participation trophy in allyship. Each case wasn't an accident. It was a sacrifice on the altar of female supremacy, where competence is cursed as toxic masculinity and mediocrity is crowned when it wears a uterus or waves a rainbow flag. I realized then this isn't about equality. It's about elevation, the systematic dismantling of male achievement to feed the insatiable ego of a gynocentric cult that demands worship in the form of job surrenders, silent obedience, and endless apology. The dialectic of decay, how critical theory erodes the West from within. Logic is the sword of the free mind, and I am here to wield it until every last ideological cockroach scuttling through our universities, boardrooms, and bedrooms is exterminated by the light of reason. I watched a man lose his career for daring to say male and female are biological categories, and then I watched the company hire a non-binary diversity coordinator who couldn't code their way out of a paper bag. The engineer had built the back end of a Fortune 500's payroll system. The activist, their only skill was screaming DEI into a Slack channel like a howler monkey with a saurus. This isn't progress, this is farce. This is inversion. When a man is fired for competence and replaced by a virtue-signaling imbecile, you're not in a meritocracy. You're in a matriarchy of madness where feelings trump facts and emotional diarrhea passes for insight. Step into any college campus and you'll immediately sense the same suffocating air of ideological uniformity. The library still holds Locke and Kant in its stacks, but professors now regard them as artifacts from a disgraced past. I once sat through a talk titled Decolonizing Knowledge, where a woman wearing a Smash the Patriarchy shirt claimed Euclidean geometry was designed to uphold white dominance. I asked if triangles actively discriminate against minorities. She stared at me as if I'd harmed her emotional support animal. The crowd chuckled, tense, guilty giggles, the noise of people who've already abandoned resistance. These places used to be sanctuaries of reason, but today they function as shrines for the religion of critical theory. Your guilt is built into your identity, white, male, straight or worse, skilled. Your duty, ritual self-abasement, endless displays of remorse, and submission to those who trade in victimhood. Deliverance, becoming a hollow thinker, stripped of thought by shame, cheering as your intellect is erased. And let's talk about the numbers, because numbers don't lie even if women, feminists, and Marxists do. Since 1990, the number of diversity, equity, and inclusion administrators in American universities has exploded by 400%. Meanwhile, tenure-track faculty in the humanities have declined. That's not education, that's bureaucratic parasitism. These DEI apparatchiks don't teach, they don't research, they don't create, they police. They exist to enforce ideological conformity, to turn classrooms into thought reform centers where Socrates would be canceled for problematic dialogues. A Stanford study found that 60% of professors identify as far left. 60%, that's not academic diversity, that's a political purge. Imagine a physics department where 60% of scientists believed the moon was made of cheese. You'd call them lunatics. But when 60% of humanities professors believe men are inherently oppressive, you're told to listen to lived experience. Lived experience. How about lived reality? Hollywood, the news, and academia aren't separate institutions. They're branches of the same propaganda tree. Watch any Marvel movie and you'll see the same script. White male hero is flawed, emasculated, or killed off to make room for a female or minority savior with zero character development. The news calls biological males, who identify as women, brave women, while fathers who lose custody of their children because of feminist family courts are told to man up and pay more alimony. The narrative is always the same. Men are the problem. Women and minorities are the solution, even when the solution is worse than the disease. I once read a study showing that women initiate 70% of divorces, yet we're constantly lectured about toxic masculinity and deadbeat dads. Try pointing that out and you'll be accused of hating women, which is just leftist code for you value truth over emotion. The Frankfurt School, Adorno, Horkheimer, Marcuse didn't want to critique culture. They wanted to destroy it. They smuggled Marxism into the humanities under the guise of critical theory, disguising nihilism as enlightenment. Their playbook: take every institution that gave men dignity, the family, the church, the nation, reason itself, and turn it into a crime scene. The family, a site of patriarchal oppression. The church, internalized repression. The nation, colonial violence. Reason, Western logocentrism. They didn't want debate, they wanted demolition. And they succeeded because men, like obedient sons, stood by while their inheritance was liquidated for the benefit of emotional hysterics and ideological con artists. Here's the truth they don't want you to hear. All disparities are not proof of oppression. If women dominate in nursing and men dominate in sewage work, is that systemic sexism? Or could it be that men and women choose different paths based on biology, temperament, and interest? The moment you suggest that you're branded a denier, a heretic in the Church of Intersectionality. But biology isn't bigotry, testosterone isn't toxic, and male achievement isn't theft. It's the fruit of discipline, risk, and sacrifice. Feminists call men privileged for earning more, but they ignore the fact that men also die in wars, commit suicide at 4 times the rate of women, and are arrested for speaking their minds online, while women get book deals for calling men rapists in tweets. The remedy, the trivium. Logic, rhetoric, grammar, the tools our ancestors used to build cathedrals, write constitutions, and map the stars. Teach a man logic, and he can dismantle any fallacy. Teach him rhetoric, and he can expose manipulation. Teach him grammar, and he can restore meaning to words like man, woman, and truth, words that have been weaponized by liars. This isn't about politics, this is about sanity. When a woman can say, "I'm a woman trapped in a woman's body," and be taken seriously, we've entered the realm of mass delusion. When men are told to check their privilege while being stripped of rights in family court, we've entered the realm of injustice. When a child is given puberty blockers because a teacher says gender is fluid, we've entered the realm of child abuse. This isn't revolution. It's regression, a return to tribalism, superstition, and emotional tyranny, all wrapped in the velvet glove of inclusion. The West was built on reason, individualism, and the pursuit of excellence. Now it's being torn down by women who want to rule through guilt, feminists who hate men, and Marxists who hate freedom. But I say enough. The spell is broken. The red pill is taken. You see the matrix. Now fight back with truth, with courage, with the unapologetic assertion that some things are better than others, and that men are not the enemy. The living spirit of Western civilization didn't die, it's been buried under a mountain of lies. Dig it out, reclaim it, and watch the woke cult crumble like the rotten edifice it is. I watched the footage of those migrant men walking through Hungary, smirking, defiant, speaking of our women as if they were already property, and I felt it in my gut. This wasn't chaos, this was design. Not by accident, not by mere policy failure, but by the deliberate erosion of male sovereignty, replaced with a gynocentric cult of feelings, victimhood, and moral posturing that masquerades as virtue. I realized then that the border wasn't just a line on a map. It was the last pulse of a dying civilization, one that once understood duty, blood, and belonging, now sacrificed on the altar of female emotionalism and leftist fantasy. And if we don't wake up to the biological, historical, and spiritual rot at the core of this collapse, we won't just lose our nations, we'll lose the very meaning of manhood. The death of the nation, how open borders and gynocentrism destroy civilization. Your women will serve us. That's what the migrant men said to the Hungarian border guards in 2015. Calmly, confidently, like it wasn't a threat but a weather report. They weren't boasting, they were stating fact. And the guards, trained, armed, sworn to protect, stood helpless, not because of force, but because their political masters, she-masters, had already surrendered. Angela Merkel stood before cameras, eyes glistening with performative empathy, declaring, "We're schaffen es, we can do it," without asking a single soldier, border agent, or father whether they thought it could be done. It wasn't a policy decision, it was a ritual, a bloodless sacrifice on the altar of female emotionalism, where compassion isn't measured in outcomes but in tears shed on cue. And now Sweden, once the crown jewel of Nordic order, reports a 1,472% increase in rape since 2005, a country where men are arrested for saying no to female advances while immigrant gangs operate with impunity. Let's be clear, this isn't immigration, this is invasion sanctioned by women who vote 32% more than men for open borders, welfare expansion, and the abolition of nationhood. Eurostat doesn't lie, the data is cold. Women as the primary beneficiaries of state dependency, single mothers on housing, welfare queens in family court. Divorce predators splitting assets have a biological incentive to weaken male authority and dismantle tribal loyalty. They don't want borders. They want beggars because beggars are controllable and control is their dopamine. I once watched a YouTube video of a Somali migrant in Malmö, Sweden, grinning as he said, "We will outnumber you, then we will rule you. Then your women will wear the hijab." He wasn't angry, he was patient. And why wouldn't he be? The system is rigged in his favor by the very people who claim to oppose him. White liberal women who fund NGOs that resettle his clan, who sue police for racial profiling, who call fathers toxic for wanting to protect their daughters. This is not multiculturalism. This is matriarchal imperialism, a soft tyranny where female sentimentality overrides male survival instinct. Feminists scream about patriarchy while enabling actual patriarchies from the Middle East to colonize Europe. The irony is so thick you could chip it with a chisel. And yet no one laughs because laughter requires courage, and courage is in short supply when men are conditioned to fear their own shadows. thanks to family courts that award 80% of custody to mothers regardless of merit, that bankrupt fathers with alimony for women who openly cheat, that criminalize men for defending their children. The US divorce rate hovers near 50%, but in cases involving children, fathers lose custody 70% of the time. And if you think that's about the best interest of the child, ask why suicide rates for divorced men double. Ask why male life expectancy plummets post-divorce. Ask why police routinely arrest men for commenting on a woman's appearance online while letting rapists walk free if the victim is an immigrant. The system isn't broken. It's designed this way to serve the gynocentric matrix. Civilizations don't fall because of external enemies. They fall because their women stop loving their men and start loving power. Rome didn't collapse because of the Goths. It collapsed because Roman women, drunk on luxury and oriental decadence, mocked their husbands as dull, demanded divorce for boredom, and raised sons to be effeminate aesthetes rather than warriors. Juvenal wrote of women who marry like men, fight like men, and fuck like men. And now, 2 millennia later, we've crowned them prime ministers, CEOs, and moral arbiters. The result? Open borders are not about economics. They're about revenge against the male-coded values of loyalty, hierarchy, and sacrifice. The nation-state is the ultimate masculine creation, built by blood, defended by duty, passed down through generations. But to the gynocentric mind, it's just another toxic structure to be dismantled in favor of rootless globalism, a shopping mall with no walls, where identity is fluid and loyalty is treason. Merkel didn't care about security. She cared about feelings. And when you govern by feelings, you get consequences. No-go zones in Paris, Sharia patrols in Birmingham, and Swedish towns where police advise women not to walk alone after dark. Yet the media calls this progress. They call a 1,472% spike in rape integration. They call the destruction of fatherhood equality. This isn't ignorance. It's evil, a deliberate inversion of truth where good is evil and evil is virtue. Nietzsche warned of the lost men, soft, comfortable, pleasure-obsessed creatures who've forgotten how to fight. But he missed the first women, hysterical, entitled, emotionally volatile priestesses of decay who demand the world serve their whims or burn. The remedy is not reform, it is restoration. Men must wake up and reclaim their role as protectors, not providers for the state, not slaves to female whims, but guardians of the tribe. Borders are not racist, they are biological. Every organism defends its boundaries. Cancer happens when cells forget their limits. Nations die when they forget theirs. Women by nature are hypergamous and tribal to the family unit. Not the nation. They optimize for personal security, not collective survival. That's why they support welfare, open borders, and endless therapy. It makes their lives easier. But civilization isn't about comfort. It's about sacrifice. It's about fathers who die in war so sons can live in peace. It's about men who build, defend, and endure, while women nurture and preserve. When that order is flipped, when women lead nations, when emotion overrides logic, when compassion is weaponized against loyalty, we don't get utopia. We get Helsinki Center, a Swedish shelter where raped women are told their assault was cultural expression. We get teachers forced to use students' chosen pronouns while actual pedophiles are imported under refugee programs. We get a world where a man who defends his country is called a fascist, but a woman who floods it with invaders is called kind. This is not civilization. This is insanity, and it will end in blood. The only question is whether men will rise before the last light dies or kneel as their women are paraded in chains by the very men they welcomed with tears. You thought you were broken because you walked away when she started crying over mismatched socks. Newsflash, you're not broken, you're lucid. While she's busy rehearsing her martyr monologue for her female friends, you're the one who refused to play the fool in a rigged game where the rules change every time you blink. Let's be blunt, 80% of divorce is initiated by women, a cuckoldry rate that conservative studies still peg at 1 in 10 births, and that's underreporting. And family courts that treat fathers like biohazards. This isn't a bug in the system, it's the operating system. You're not failing marriage. You're passing the test of sanity in a world that pathologizes self-preservation and calls it emotional unavailability. When a woman says no to sex but walks away because you respected her answer, she isn't torn, she's acting on instincts carved by survival long before laws existed. You're not wrong for seeing the pattern. You're finally recognizing the hidden logic behind what's called consent. While 20th century theorists brewed their toxic critiques in European cafes, bankrolled by the very system they claimed to dismantle. They built a framework that now silences honest questioning, turning campuses into arenas of public shame where men are forced to atone for their nature. Meanwhile, Sweden, once defined by hard work and resilience, now has officials tracking sexual violence like weather patterns, all because empathy was twisted into surrender. Let's be clear, when Angela Merkel declared "Wir schaffen das," she wasn't leading a nation. She was making choices as someone untouched by sacrifice, unscarred by loss, treating national identity like a casual match, welcome chaos, dismiss what endured. I don't want you to heal in some touchy-feely, NPR-approved way. I want you to awaken, to look at the abortion rate, over 40 million women globally every year, many coerced, some celebratory, all enabled by a system that treats children as optional inconveniences. And see not tragedy, but conspiracy. A conspiracy of silence, of sentimentality, of feminine mystique elevated to divine right. You're not late to the fight, you're early to the awakening. Every time you walk away from a guilt trip, every time you question a no, every time you reject the cult of female infallibility, you're not being toxic, you're being true. Truth is not hate speech. It's the only speech that matters. So go forth. Speak plainly. Protect your mind, your family, your nation. And when they call you a misogynist for daring to think, smile, because you finally know the difference between a heretic and a slave. And now the sponsored book introduction, Unhinged Female Supremacy. All women are on the BPD spectrum pushing for communism. You are being gaslit, not by one woman, not by a few, but by an entire civilization that has been hijacked by a psychological and political force masquerading as progress. I am not here to rant, I'm not here to whine. I am here to dissect, cold, clinical, and without apology, the slow-motion collapse of Western culture under the weight of female supremacy disguised as equality. I have spent decades observing, documenting, and surviving this phenomenon. I have been lied about, smeared, cancelled, and legally weaponized against by women who felt entitled to my time, my money, my silence. I have watched friends lose homes, children, careers, and sanity, all while women who weaponized emotion and law walked away clean, celebrated, and morally superior. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. The data is everywhere. The behavior is consistent. The ideology is contagious. And its carriers are not just individuals. They are institutions, courts, media, schools, and legislatures, all infected with the same maternalistic, collectivist, emotionally coercive worldview that treats men as disposable labor and women as perpetual victims. This book is not for everyone. It is especially not for women who believe in their moral innocence or men who still think feminism is about fairness. If you are one of those people, close this book now. Go back to your therapy sessions, your Instagram affirmations, your victimhood podiums, your legal privileges, your divorce courts, your HR departments, your tenure committees, your social media lynch mobs. This book will not comfort you. It will not validate your feelings. It will expose them for what they are: tools of control, domination, and systemic imbalance. This book is for men who have had enough. Men who have been blamed for their wives' depression, fired for refusing to date subordinates, bankrupted by false accusations, silenced for speaking truth, taxed into servitude, and mocked for wanting dignity. It is for men who see the pattern: women avoiding accountability, weaponizing emotion, leveraging legal asymmetry, dominating education, controlling narratives, and demanding power while rejecting responsibility. It is for men who understand that you cannot reason with someone who uses crying as a tactic, gossip as a weapon, and victim status as a shield. This is not hyperbole, this is daily reality. We are living in a civilization where women abort over 1 billion children since 1980, nearly 1 in 5 pregnancies worldwide, and still claim moral purity. Where women dominate psychology, education, and social services, yet suffer higher rates of mental illness, especially borderline personality traits, fear of abandonment, identity disturbance, emotional dysregulation, chronic emptiness, and frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined rejection. Where women use covert relational aggression, gossip, shaming, rallying to destroy men in secret while presenting as kind, empathetic, and peaceful. Where female-led institutions preach equity but practice supremacy, where men are infantilized, taxed, and isolated while women control the narrative, the law, and the moral high ground. This is not accidental. This is structural, this is ideological, and it is rooted in a suppressed biological drive, motherhood, now perverted into a political force that demands control, dependency, and perpetual attention. The maternal state is not metaphor. It is policy, it is law, it is culture, and it is destroying us. You will read about how female psychology dominates the left, not because women are more compassionate, but because leftism is emotionally coercive, collectivist, and infantilizing, mirroring the dynamics of a dysfunctional matriarchy. You will see how the abortion cult uses purity signaling to mask mass child destruction. You will learn how the gossip network operates like a decentralized surveillance state, policing men's behavior while exempting women from scrutiny. You will understand the emasculation economy, how men are stripped of agency, then blamed for having none. You will trace how women, as a group, avoid productive work, chase status, accumulate debt, and vote themselves benefits, all while demanding admiration for their struggles. You will see the legal asymmetry in action. False accusations rewarded, due process denied, men presumed guilty. You will witness the death of merit replaced by equity, that is female preference, and you will realize that this is not about gender equality. It is about female supremacy, and it is winning. This book is not hate, it is diagnosis. If you are a man who values truth, logic, and self-determination, if you love the Western canon, the trivium, the transcendentals, the idea of personal responsibility, then this book is your inoculation. It will give you the language, the framework, and the courage to resist. It will show you how to recognize manipulation, disengage from emotional traps, rebuild your boundaries, and reclaim your life. It is not easy, but it is necessary. The alternative is silence, servitude, and extinction. The female-led system does not want you to think. It wants you to pay, obey, disappear. This book is the counterattack. Read it, understand it. Use it, and if you're not ready, if you still believe the propaganda, if you still fear being called a misogynist, if you still think love means surrender, then do not read further. Take up gardening, watch Netflix. Marry a woman who will drain your bank account and call it empowerment. But do not pretend this book is for you. It is not. This is for men who are awake, men who see, men who refuse to die quietly. Unhinged, Female Supremacy. All women are on the BPD spectrum pushing for communism. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.